I'm Sanjay Pulipaka. Welcome to the latest edition of Global Perspectives. Today we have with us Brigadier Arun Sahgal. He was previously the founding director of the Office of Net Assessment, Indian Integrated Defense Staff. He is also consultant with the DRDO, the leading defense research institute in India, and is also associated with various think tanks and government institutions. Today, we are speaking in a specific context. That is, yesterday, there was a ceasefire between the Indian and Pakistani forces facilitated by the United States. There has been considerable discussion on the strategies of both countries. There is already a discussion about the lessons learned from the conflict. But the point to be noted is, will the ceasefire hold? What are the subconventional strategies, conventional and nuclear strategies deployed by both sides? To discuss all that, we have with us Brigadier Arun Sahgal. Welcome, Brigadier.
Thank you very much, sir, for honor to be on your show.
Let's start off. You have often stated that Pakistan pursued the subconventional conflict strategy with India in the hope that it can control the conventional military dynamic, preventing it from escalating. What is, in your opinion, what has happened with reference to Operation Sindoor? Do you think Pakistan today is not able to escalate or is not in control of escalation? How do you see this escalation, de-escalation dynamic between India and Pakistan after Operation Sindoor?
Thank you. It's an excellent question, sir. Let me start by explaining broadly what is Pakistan's strategic thinking. I say so is because I have been in a track 2 dialogue with Pakistan now for good 15 years. And many a times Pakistanis do come up and present their papers on strategic stability, etc. So the perception of the Pakistan is their domination of the subconventional space provides them with the legitimacy of causing damage to India and destabilizing the Indian state at low cost. They have perceived that India would not be escalating the situation in the conventional domain, but this changed post Balakot. But Balakot was again an interesting example in their lexicon. In Balakot, we retaliated to what happened in Pulwama and we launched a major strike on a terrorist camp, and it was a one-off strike. And what the Pakistani did was that they launched aerial aerial incursions over Indian line across the line of control in retaliation to this thing, and shot down one of our planes and captured our pilot. So that single shot escalation and retaliation finished over there. I'm not going into too much of details, but finished over there with the return of the pilot. But it also had its own very interesting implications for what we call as strategic escalation management. The fundamental issue from the Pakistani perspective is that India has the potential and the capacity to escalate at any time or retaliate to an action of a low conventional conflict which it perceives to be perpetrated by Pakistan at time of its own choosing. But the lesson they learned from Balakot was that Pakistan also had the potential to deal with such an escalation by escalating itself and retaliation, and thereafter managing one or two rungs of escalation that may occur as a result. In that case also, like it has happened in this case, eventually the whole issue was sorted out by a third party intervention. I mean, India does not say so, neither does the Pakistanis say so, but the fact of the matter is the three ambassadors from France, UK and United States were very active in this whole thing. And as you are fully aware, intervention by the Secretary of State of America, Pompeo at that time, who said, I was woken up in the middle of the night because of the fear of Pakistan having deployed nuclear weapons. So Two things happen. The Pakistan's belief that it can manage any limited escalation that India does in response to a terrorist strike. And the second thing was that it could play the nuclear card. So these are the two things that have happened. What has Sindoor changed? Sindoor has changed by two issues. Sindoor has changed is that by attacking 9 targets spread across Pakistan per se and the Pakistani occupied Kashmir, and not only restricting itself to POK, India has shown that India will attack the terror camps as and where they are and will not allow the Pakistan to shape the narrative. So the cost of such actions will be high and across the board. As you know, today's Times of India is indicating a death of 140 people, including some very senior terrorist leaders. So this is very an important aspect of the whole thing. The second element that what we have done is that we are now trying to say is that not only will we retaliate, but we are not allowing you to take on the subconventional space by trying to exploit that space by sending terrorists across. Any act of terror will have a retaliation similar to an act of war being perpetuated by Pakistan against India. So the new norms are not calibrated, but a retaliation, perceived retaliation, which satisfies us, backed up by telling the Pakistanis that such actions which are perpetrated from a Pakistani soil or are collaborated by Pakistan shall get a suitable response from India. It will be taken as an act akin to war.
Does that mean that Pakistan's propensity to use nuclear weapons, the possible use of nuclear weapons, as a card to prevent Indian response has failed this time?
So when we came back from, in our assessment of that Pulwama and Balakot event, we had felt that the Pakistanis perceived that they could deal with one or two rungs of escalation based on their conventional capacities. We have to understand that post 2013 onwards, Pakistan has been getting a massive assistance from China, and those assistance have come largely in terms of what I would call our capital assets, aircrafts, helicopters, drones, electronic warfare equipment, integrating Pakistani surveillance systems with the Baidu. Okay, Baidu is there, as you are aware, sir, is that their national surveillance system akin to GPS,
Global positioning
global
system.
positioning system. So what they believe that with the induction of these systems, they would be able to handle first or a second tier of escalation. What has changed this time is two things. One is their perception that they could use drones and other elements to surveillance our area, launch targeted attacks, and cause destruction to our facilities and our air defense systems has failed. So the strategy of the Pakistan to be able to retaliate against India in the even in the first year has not succeeded to degree. India again was very proportionate in its response. We did not go in for any major attacking major Pakistani systems, but we carried out attacking those elements where the support bases of Pakistan. But once we found that the Pakistanis were attacking our military assets, and I had talked about this, that the moment you start attacking military assets, all bets are off. So what we thereafter did was we did not only took out their air defense systems, but we also sent in a calling card of major missile attacks on their topmost bases, like the one I think is Sargoda next to Kirana Hills. I think it's Sargoda or Rafiki, one of the two, where we not only attacked the airfield, we crossed a crater over there. We also put in a bomb next to an ammunition dump, and next to it has got a small nuclear storage facility for this nuclear fuel storage facility next to it. So the Pakistanis realized that their attempt to penetrate our defenses in any of our major air bases, major towns, major issues has not succeeded, and where their attempts, India has succeeded in attacking them particularly as and where it liked. So this is an important change, and was something which was concerning the Pakistani leaders. The chatters that was picked up on the other side was there was a lot of concern on it. To that extent, the belief that the Pakistan can play the nuclear card in India ad lib is something which is become a question mark, and Pakistan realizes. I mean, we are jumping a little ahead, but the fact of the matter is that they held a nuclear command authority meeting. They denied it. You don't really have to have a meeting and announce it. The announcement of NCA meetings are basically to say that my nuclear weapons are now ready. I've reached the end of my thresholds. Now I will have nothing else but to fall upon but the nuclear weapons as a part of my full spectrum deterrence, etc. So he was pointing towards nuclear weapons, and that is where India called this bluff and he said, "We are not impressed. You can do what you feel like, but we will go and hit your strategic targets." So India continued with the strategic targeting. And then, of course, as we go along in the interview, I'll share with you what happened, where the Americans will intervene, etc., etc.
You just referred to the American intervention. You had also referred to the
So,
Western intervention in the Balkot. Uh,
yes.
so do you think to prevent the escalation in the context of a nuclear escalatory ladder, I mean, the escalatory ladder leading to a possible nuclear confrontation, that both countries require external players such as United States or someone else to control the escalation process?
Sir, it's like this, very simple. Firstly, when you start touching the nuclear threshold scenario, then we are entering into a domain where nuclear use can happen on based on misperceptions, on inadvertentness. So misperceptions can push the agenda. Now, in this case, reportedly, in fact, what has happened even in the case of Balakot, I'll go to stick to Balakot. The information received was that moment the Nuclear Command Authority met, they enhanced the level of alert status. When you enhance the level of alert status, it is certain communications get charged up that are picked up. Some weapons come out of their shelters, and there is a dispersal starts taking place of. And more importantly, there are other parameters like in spurt in electric supplies and other elements. There are multiple reasons we can pick them up. So those movements start giving an impression that you are moving towards a nuclear threshold. Now, here is a problem area. The problem area is this, and India's no first use policy it devoids any nuclear posturing until and unless it has the direct clearance at the highest political level. So it's a politically controlled element. But in Pakistan, although technically on the employment committee, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is the head, but the real boss is always the army chief. And we now have somewhat of a army chief who, I wouldn't say rogue, but slightly a very, very Islamist in his mind and a very rigid man who is able to do any take incalculable steps for various reasons, particularly internal control, etc., to escalate the situation. And here again, like in that case, they had openly declared the weapons had been deployed and it put on the panic button on everybody. Here again, it appears that the first and the second rung of alert status had been crossed and Pakistani weapons were being asked to get ready and those intercepts were picked up. And that's where, hey, you can't go down that way. You can't go around using nuclear weapons. But it's not that you use a nuclear weapon against India. you nuclear weapon in an area, and the kind of effects of nuclear weapons will not only have on India, it'll have on the neighboring countries, Afghanistan, it'll have in China, it'll have in depending on how it is used, it might have an effect in the sea. So it's a you contaminate a huge area because of your stupidity, because that's the point it's trying to make. So the short answer is, the Pakistanis have realized that the futility of depending upon a nuclear card has been compromised. I mean, has been realized by them, and that the nuclear card to that extent stands compromised to a degree. Not that it will stop them from posturing, but the Indian political establishment now understands that behind this posturing, how much is the intent and how far will the Pakistani go? Again, in any escalation control or understanding of escalation management or escalation management, it will be a very serious political cause that the two Indian establishment will have to take. But fundamentally, the Indian establishment start point would be that it will be very difficult for Pakistan to cross the nuclear threshold and start using nuclear weapons, even low yield tactical nuclear weapons.
I will ask a straightforward question since we are talking about how Indian leadership dealt with the nuclear question. There are a lot of analysts who are saying that we were in an advantageous position in this recent conflict and we have frittered away the advantages that we have accrued. Do you subscribe to that position, and do you think Pakistan henceforth will scale down its subconventional warfare strategies towards India? Has it learned the lesson? How do we understand the Pakistan military leadership? What are the variables to look at to understand that Pakistan has learned its lessons?
So it's an excellent question. The fundamental issue from our perspective is our leadership has realized that whenever we have to prepare for any skirmish or any military action with Pakistan, we have to prepare for 2 to 3 rounds of escalation. Second issue we have to, the military has to realize is that we are going to be entering in the arena of a non-contact war, where domination of airspace, air defense, use of technologies like drones, loitering ammunition, management of the airspace, how do we enhance our ISR, how do we enhance our electronic warfare capabilities. All these issues have become germane to the focus is shifting from contact warfare to a non-contact warfare. And in the non-contact warfare, the kinetic and non-kinetic warfare will have a equal space in the future. This is something which we have to realize, I'm glad to tell you that recently the privilege of running some scenarios for a senior officers course of future warfare. These issues are being realized by the military, particularly the efforts of our integrated defense staff and other people. These issues are being realized and they are being looked upon in a great degree of angle. So the fact that we had a reasonably integrated air defense, integrated air defense, our counter drone system worked, our electronic warfare jamming worked, and we have the privilege, or I won't say privilege, we managed, or let's say we did not allow a single Pakistani missile system or counter drones or UAV system or UCAV system to hit any significant targets on Indian side, and we destroyed most of their drones, is something which we need to be proud of, and we should build up on those capacities. So the notion of war is changing, and this notion of war has to be understood, and people will also have to understand what is the new shift is taking place. And the second issue is we have been working on a concept called the strategic missile force, non-nuclear strategic missile force. The use of missiles by Pakistan on us and our limited use, I think, should prompt us to develop a much more credible conventional strategic missiles force for targeting in depth with multiple warheads. And as you are aware, we have this hypersonic weapons, MIRV hypersonic weapons, glide weapon systems, hypersonic glide weapons. So all those issues will now come into play. And the advantage, another advantage that we have got this time is we have a good look at how the Chinese system work. So this is a big advantage for us. We have now evaluate the efficacy of Chinese systems. You must have seen a PL-15 lying in Firozpur area, which
Yeah.
unexploded. Now that's a huge this thing for us. We are developing our own Astra BVR weapon system. Now we will see what are the differences, where are the Chinese technologies working, how the Chinese. So these kind of things will help us at all. You asked me a question, how will Pakistani evaluate it? See, already I noticed from the debates going on in Pakistan and the chatter that one can pick up from the net and other places, is that there are concerns that the MQ-9Bs, close air defense systems, their equivalent of S-400, which are applied by the Chinese, they have not performed as well as they thought they would perform. Even the PL-15 have not performed as well as they performed because they missed their target. The fact that we managed to degrade their air defense and knock out their JF-17s inside Pakistan space from this side was a huge success. And there are also reports that Pakistan has lost an AEW, which again indicates that its efficacy is not there, that it got picked up by us. So long range capability, standoff capability, we have proved, and the Pakistanis are worried. If I were Pakistani, I'd be very worried, and that's exactly what the debate going on in the Pakistani Air Forces. That we thought that we were impenetrable, we thought we would be able to degrade Indian, but we have by and large failed. So there is a lesson in this, although it will be very difficult for the Pakistanis to come out with it, but we as a research community should look at the articles coming out from Pakistan out of this, we will look at the chatter coming out of it, look at their discussions coming out of it, and we'll all get to know. And sometimes we need to also look at how the Americans talk about these issues in America, think tanks, etc. Stimson, and where they are largely populated, we will get some inputs from there. So we should be able to build a strong picture of what actually happened, not brownie points, but really speaking, to understand where did the technology prove themselves in case of Pakistan, where was the technology failure, and we also need to do a similar kind of a detailed check from ourselves, where we were good and where we were weak.
Many people seem to be surprised by the way Indian air defense system worked. I mean, why do you think that happened? Is it because they were not keeping track of the kind of things that we were developing? Why do you think Pakistan misjudged air defense system, the strength of India's air defense systems?
Hubris. India is incapable of doing it. India has substandard equipment. These are the kind of perception. They never understood how Pinaka worked. They never understood how our. There's a system I just picked up. It's called SAMAR, surface to air missile for assured retaliation. SAMAR system. So we have SAMAR system which we have developed. So all these systems we have over the period of time developed. And really interestingly, how we have developed capacities and capabilities of counter drone. There is a radar which has been given to the battalion level. Okay, it's a 1.6 kilometer range radar where we can pick up this thing, and then we have man portable air defense system to shoot this. Then at the brigade level, apart from man portable air defense system which have been integrated with the defenses, we also have electronic warfare companies. The ED companies have come out with a very powerful jammers. And these powerful jammers are being deployed to degrade the electronic of these systems. So, and then of course we have this area air defense and integrated air defense of the Air Force who picks it up from a long range. So, a, a very effective counter drone and counter air UAV systems have been developed by us. And where have we got this from? For last 4.5 years that we have been deployed in China has been boon to us. Please,
Mm.
your listeners to understand what we have been practicing them. We have had a live enemy in Chinese which were operating ahead of us. So we have over a period of time honed in our not only our assets but only also our systems and developed those very effective short retaliation systems that we have got, and they have become very useful against the Pakistanis.
Do you think now that the ceasefire is in place, Pakistan will go about acquiring new air defense systems so that the next time they are in control of the way events evolve? Or do you think the economic crisis that they are in will limit the possibilities of such acquisitions?
So okay, there are two aspects to answers. Pakistan will certainly like to go and acquire it. Pakistan will not only acquire it, Pakistan will acquire the HQ9 system, which the Chinese have not given them. They will ask them. The whole issue will be based on two things. One issue is how does the Chinese evaluate the Pakistani performance? Yesterday, Adil Brar from Taiwan had put up a tweet that the Chinese gave a huge explanation on how their air defense system continues to be good, etc., etc. It did not perform as badly as it is being talked about. So there is a concern within. There is also this is also an area where a lot of Western experts, particularly Americans and the other guys, will come to India and ask us uh, evaluate their performance vis-a-vis because they are going to have a direct rate. Okay, so in that sense, the Chinese will take a call whether there was a system failure or a handling failure, or whether the Pakistanis are capable of handling such sophisticated equipment, or do they have the entire systems in place, do they have the infrastructure in place. Because infrastructure is basically dependent on AI-driven information-based systems, and if you do not have AI-driven information-based system, your inputs are always going to be fragmented and incorrect. So those are the issues. The second issue is, of course, very rightly put, the money. Does Pakistan have the money for these kind of systems? So I presume, given the military state, they will certainly try and acquire some systems, but ability to large scale replacement or large scale upgradation will remain limited. But that doesn't mean that we will not have to face a reasonable amount of threat in the future. But yes, if we upgrade our systems and we integrate our systems and we continue to build up on our successes, the gap between the air defense management between Pakistan and us will increase in our favor, and we should be able to occupy the Pakistani sky in a better fashion than perhaps we did at this time. Although we had a phenomenal performance, but the fact of the matter is that they could have take long range shoots at us and suppress some of our air defenses is something which we need to look at. And then, of course, we have only 3 batteries out of the 5. 2 batteries have to come. If once they also come, and then we have also developing our own sort of an integrated air capital zone air defense system. So once those things get inducted, we will be able to a much better place. But the short answer to your question is yes, Pakistan will try and get them, but Chinese will evaluate. And second issue is the money will always be a criteria, and given the IMF conditions, etc., their ability to circumvent them will again be limited.
How do you see India's reluctance to use Navy in the current conflict, in the sense that Navy also has capabilities to launch some air attacks? Why didn't we use that route?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the best methods of defeating the Pakistan air defense was to launch an BrahMos from the sea. I am not too sure whether we did launch. Some people are saying we did launch a BrahMos from the sea. Some are
Oh,
saying no. And but what we did was that we flew P8Is in that region to evaluate the air defenses of the Pakistanis. So some of the gaps that we found were not only the gaps which the Air Force air defense system did or the land-based IID did, but there were gaps which were located by the Navy. The sometimes you use the force, but our carrier task force, like some Western analysts were saying, the fact that the carrier task force was already deployed over here, always deployed over here, was an adequate reassurance that should push comes to shove, that we could have attacked Karachi or done some kinetic action against the Pakistani Navy and the Pakistani assets. But no blockades. I don't think blockade we use word very loosely, but no, not unlikely to happen. But
okay.
we so I mean it's always good to keep one strong arm out of the war and utilize it when you need to do it. And please also remember that we also have nuclear subs, and now our nuclear subs are being refitted with K4 systems, which have got 2,000 kilometers range. So we have a reasonable amount of standoff sea capability. So those issues make a difference to the other side in their calculations. So the bottom line is our Air Force and Army are good enough to deal with Pakistan without getting the Navy involved. So Navy is our force in being, and it can be always be used should it be required. That's my explanation. I don't know how correct I am.
Coming back to this subconventional strategies such as terrorism and other things, Pakistan has often relied on line of control, violating the line of control, and also now across the international border. Do you think, in addition to artillery firing, pushing people, infiltrators under the cover of artillery fire, Pakistan will start using drones also as part of this kind of strategies across borders, even though there is ceasefire? And does the yesterday's experience that after ceasefire, Pakistan continued to use drones? How do you see that?
So Pakistan has been using drones for quite some time now. The only thing was Pakistan was sending in weapons and sending drugs. Okay, heroin and things like that. There were in the last 2 years we have captured about 1,300 of these of this thing. 174 drones or something have been shot up by us. But use of drones like Bhaktya, UCAV, etc. Is something which he can think of doing. He can deploy his drones and standoff systems from his side along with the terrorist actions, okay, and or use them for a communication link for communication purposes, or providing them with advanced information under looking for gaps in our defenses. All those issues he can do. It's absolutely on the cards. So we need to be looking at the new paradigm of CI operations that the Pakistan can do, and this new paradigm cannot be just being thought of an infiltration by land. It can also do infiltration by air. He can also do infiltration. He can detect gaps in our defenses through these electronic systems that he's created. He can degrade our electronic systems. He can degrade our optical systems. So uh, our counterinsurgency grids and our counterinsurgency strategies will need to have a relook in terms of new technologies that are coming in and their impact on the interesting part is, from Indian perspective, a worrying part. One success of 8 terrorists
Mm.
in killing 22 or 28 innocent people on religious grounds has created this huge impact and which took two nuclear armed countries nearly at to war and at a nuclear exchange. Now, does Pakistan think it can continue with this strategy? The sad part of it is, the sad part of it is that Pakistanis do believe that such kind of triggering is important to show the Kashmiri people that they care for them, which is wrong. But it is also a part of the destabilizing narrative for India and to keep testing India at various times that India has the capacity to deal with it at low cost to them. Now, why we go back to the old question? We now that we have imposed a larger degree of costs on Pakistan, our strategy should now be that any such act will not only be an act of war, but we will inflict destruction on the other side. Costs of such actions by Pakistan will be high. And therefore, no narrative of Pakistan, they are not supported by us, etc., 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 should be acceptable. But that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is we really have to relook our own grades, our own intelligence cooperation, our intelligence structures, the way we are deploying. Are we deploying very well? There is a bureaucracy kind of a issue that comes up. The turf battles are there. The turf battles allows a lot of space to be exploited by these people, and that is where this whole thing happened. It is equally important for us to deal with Pakistan. We hopefully understand that the changes in the strategy, what they will do, we have to analyze them, study them, and be ready for them. But it is equally important for us to strengthen our own grids, strengthen our own intelligence, and don't allow these kind of things to happen. Yes.
I would like to get your views on uh, what is happening in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Pashtun dynamic. How do we understand them? Is there an genuine crisis of governance in Pakistan?
But Baluchis are up in arms. Baluchis are up in arms. Their men have been taken away. Their rights have been taken away. Economically, they are being deprived. And no gains of progress or investments which are being made is being felt by the Baluchi people. They have become simply laborers in their own territory. Sui gas, which is piped into Lahore, is not piped into outside Quetta. Nowhere else it is. So, Baluchis are up in arms for mistreatment and for being looked as near abroad and not part of a Pakistani state. They are up in arms. The Chinese who are coming over there have colonized the area. They have created cities which are totally controlled by the Chinese. They are walled cities they have created, and no work is being given to the Baluchis. Normally, what happens is when there's such a large industrial projects take place, the locals get a lot of work, and so they are happy to support it. But nothing is that happening. Third, no water. There's no fresh water. Despite so. They are up in arms. They have been provided weapon systems. They are getting arms across from Iranians. There are a large number of interest groups who are there who want to destabilize the whole issue of CPEC, and the Pakistanis believe that India is behind it is totally wrong. What they are getting are the American arms which were left behind, and there is a degree of understanding with the TTP and the Baluchis, as also against the Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban is sick and tired and fed up of the Pakistanis who have been trying to control them. And look at 2 million Afghans have been sent back in the middle of winter to Afghanistan. They are living in extreme poverty. Now, half of them, if they pick up arms and start supporting the Baluchis purely as a point of anger, who is to blame them? Nobody is to be blamed. Them. Pakistanis don't realize this, but that's the truth. Half these guys who are new recruits who are coming in are those people who have picked up the gun. And as you know, guns are easy to get in that part of the world. Is who picked up a gun because of the treatment meted out to them by the Pakistani state. And the situation today is after Jafar Express, which Pakistan had lost a huge number of military people, some people saying 100, 200, but I don't know, I can't give a number. But in the last couple of days, they have lost 25 serving people. The similar thing has happened in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in northwestern Frontier province. There, 11 day, some elements of 11 day had to be leave behind for fighting with the TTP. So you look at the totality of the Pakistani state. It has a fire burning in Balochistan. It's a fire burning in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It has tried to start fires against India. It's a country which has got 1.2% GDP growth rate. Its total reserves are less than $40 billion. I mean, what's wrong with them here? So the state, Pakistani state, unfortunately today supports the ambitions of the Pakistani military. And the ambition of the Pakistani military is an anti-India nuance and under no circumstances allow India to dominate. Now that is their main this thing. So this is totally India-centric narrative, which they are losing the plot, they're losing the country, and they're pushing the country into depravity and disaster.
That's incredibly sad, given that Pakistan is a nuclear-powered state and geopolitically very important country. Coming back to the nuclear dynamic, do you think after the recent India-Pakistan conflict, there is a need to relook at India's nuclear doctrine, as some are saying? And what is your opinion about how the international community has responded to Pakistan's nuclear cyber rattling?
So, the early information coming out from various sources, including Washington D.C., some people are writing about it, is that the situation really became grave. That after the Nuclear Command Authority met, they picked up signs. So did India, I'm told, picked up signs of Pakistani going ahead and deploying nuclear weapons. Now, the world is absolutely concerned about the use of nuclear weapons because once you use it, it's going to become very difficult to control the escalation. India's policy of no first use, I think, is reasonable, good. We have our no first use qualifies. The simple reason is that India does not believe and it also signifies a strong belief in India's own capability vis-a-vis Pakistan, that we do not believe that we need to use nuclear weapons under any scenario in a conflict. They are political weapons, and should the political thresholds be crossed, and if Pakistan uses a nuclear weapon, our doctrine is clear that India will have a massive retaliation. So I do not think under these circumstances this has stood us in good stead. Even our defense minister has sometime talked about is our doctrine not written in stone, but we will evaluate it when we need to evaluate it. I don't think it's important for India to reevaluate our doctrine at this particular stage. See, there is another angle to us involved. I mean, our NFU covers not only Pakistan, it also covers China.
Mm.
China also has a new NFU, we also have NFU. You change the NF from NFU, so the China angle becomes germane. Okay, we tend to overlook the fact that we are a fast-growing economy and with fast-growing comprehensive national power and military capabilities. Now, if you have a fast-growing economy, comprehensive national power, strong military capabilities, in 5 to 10 years of time, or that's the time we are taking this for all our analysis, 2035, 33, 35, you're going to be about a 15 trillion dollar economy. A 14, $15 trillion economy means that your defense budget is going to touch about $200 billion. So when you're going to be increasing at that capacity, at that levels, and if you have a doctrine of first use, it creates a certain degree of let's put it this way, destabilization scenario, particularly when the Chinese have it. So by having a no first use this thing, we are conveying it to the world, and more importantly to Chinese, that for us it's a political weapon, and the errant in the nuclear domain, who starts this whole angle about nuclear escalation and tries to use it as a leverage in a conventional domain is Pakistan. And that is something which you and the world have to take cognizance of. But the fact of the matter is, capacities decide postures. As we get 5, 6, 7 nuclear submarines, our, our numbers go up, our megatonnages go up, our MIRVs go up, our MOAV capabilities go up. Elements of strategic deterrence will change. Okay, so once those elements of strategic deterrence change, things will already fall in place. We don't really have to change our nuclear, our first use doctrine. I don't believe that there is any requirement at this particular stage to tinker with the doctrine.
True. Lastly, you have worked a lot on net assessment, scenario building, and also understanding the capacities of other countries, power capabilities. How do you think these capabilities have evolved as domains in India? And what do you think we should do to be analytically ready to understand the new challenges that are confronting India?
It's a very good question, sir. So we need to. There is always talk to have induct more and more technologies. Let's put it this way: the quantum, this, AI, EW, EMP, DEW, etc., etc., etc. But what India needs to do is look at civil military fusion in technology development. What I talk about civil military fusion is that we have to have a fairly reasonable idea what are the kind of civilian technologies that we need to develop and evolve in our country. How much of a dual use military function do they do? And what are the military technologies that we need to develop which will have an important civilian function? So we, in our comprehensive national power, I'm not going on to the economics and that's not my area. Those guys are the smart guys. You are smarter than me. But what I'm trying to tell you is, in terms of comprehensive national power capability development, we need to leverage technologies in concert with how we feel our future uses in conflicts and situations are going to happen. And we have a very interesting example of what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, which is a very interesting war, high technology attritional war. People are fighting from trench to 100 yards to 100 yards, but they are using bullets, but they are also using more drones, more smart systems. The artillery systems are being managed through iPads and things like that. So your ISRs are being shifted. So what the future we need to do is to create a credible dissuasive capability throughout against both our neighbors, and also India has to also learn that at some stage in next 10 years or so, it has to start seriously thinking of projecting power to secure its interests. So for what do we need for that? What kind of forces do we need to have? What system do we need to have? What kind of assets in the sky we need to have? I'll give you a small example. Today we have a NAVIC. We have 7 satellite NAVIC. It's not fully functional. We are dependent on GPS. Okay, tomorrow if Americans were to play around with a GPS and say even change the GPS by 5 yards or 10 yards, etc. See how much difference it will make. So, because we don't have our own GPS, we have to have integrated GPS system located on the weapon system, and so do hundreds of other things that we need to do. The first and the foremost thing we have to do is look at critical areas of technology that we need to have. We need to have quantum. Why quantum? Quantum is that tomorrow, if I were a quantum communications, I do not need to worry about my OFCs. He can destroy my OFC. My command and control will not be tested. Similarly, quantum sensors. I can use quantum sensors to ensure my I don't need a GPS. So there are a number of such technologies which we are thinking about. We are discussions going on. Uh, I mean, we had a lecture on India's space capabilities. We are looking at it, but the problem with India is that we have a good idea of what we want, generally good idea. We look at the things, but in our implementation we are very slow. And one of the indications of why we are slow and its implication was the Prime Minister had to call a meeting during the middle of the last 3 days to ask the DRDO to step up production, ask Baba Kalyani to come over and step up production. So this is what we need to do. We need to look at these things much more critically. And I will put them all under civil military fusion for integrated national capability development.
On that note, thanks a lot, Brigadier Arun Sahgal. Wonderful talking to you on integrated national power capabilities and a host of other issues such as conventional nuclear warfare and the implications of the recent Operation Sindoor. Thanks a lot, and
Thank you,
hopefully we
sir.
will continue this conversation in near future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.